If your cat doesn't enjoy being held, let me tell you, this is not an isolated issue. For many owners, even though their pets are very affectionate in other ways, picking up a feline holding a cat, it's always off limits. Cats love to have control, and as loving as some cats are, they still love to be in charge, always calling the action, and as an owner, this can place you right there on the sidelines, on the outside looking in. If your cat is all about the cuddles, yet wants nothing to do with being held, this video is for you. In today's material, I'll talk about feline behavior, while being held is not really something felines are wired for, and then I'll talk about a few notables, somewhat of a subtopic that lives beneath the surface that can help detail even further the reasons why some cats are against being picked up and being held. As is the case with a lot of subjects relative to feline actions and behavior, you somewhat have to think like a cat to fully understand their objections when it comes to being held. Interesting topic and hopefully a beneficial one, especially for new cat owners, first-time owners. I've got you covered. Stay tuned. When detailing a topic like this one, it's important to note that even the most domestic cat is never too far removed from who they really are. And that is an animal that still very much relies on instincts. Because for as long as cats have been around humans, unlike some animals, at the core of who they are lives a very untamed creature. Cats can really only be watered down just oh so much. Felines are born to be free, born to roam, born to stalk, and born to hunt. Cats rely on their instincts in order to catch prey and also avoid predators. Being boxed in, being restrained, being held by the human hand. Cats have to learn it. They have to adapt to it, adjust to it, because that's not who they are, and by default, not what they really enjoy. To us, holding a cat is enjoyable. Being close to the pet that you love, to us it's a way to show affection and also give ourselves a bit of comfort. But this is where that breakdown in understanding can very much take center stage. To a cat, being held is a restriction, somewhat of a punishment, something to be feared, potentially. Being held is threatening, can be perceived to be threatening, in the same way that being held or captured by a predator would also cause a cat to feel threatened and fearful. Cats love that control and being held by you. Even though you do have the very best of intentions, it will place them and put them very much out of control. While we all know that cats all have their very own responses to being held, just because some felines seem to be okay with it, this is only because they've grown to trust and adapt to it. At the core, it doesn't really mean they like it. What it really comes down to is freedom, having that control, being able to come and go and do it on feline time rather than being on your time. This is why some cats will have no issue sitting on a person's lap, but once those arms wrap around, we've got a problem. The sitting on your lap really isn't a restraint. The cat can jump down whenever they please, but once those arms are locked, we've got a very different situation. Now that we've covered the foundation, the primary reasons why cats object to being held due to those natural instincts and feline evolution that need to be in charge of movement, their own movement, let's now talk a bit about why some cats have very different responses. It really all comes down to the personality of your pet and that trust level they have with you, what the environment is like, and how did the cat grow up. Even though it still goes against the grain, some cats are more than content with being held, and in those felines you'll likely find a very common thread, and that's human interaction from a very, very young age. Meaning the cat in question, the feline that loves to be held, has probably been held daily for years. It's not a new thing for them, and it's not something they've really had to get used to per se, because it's really all they've ever known. Now, you can't override instincts, but you can cut it a bit close. And this is the example. Healthy relationships with humans from a very young age and being held from that very young age. And let's certainly not overlook personality. Some cats and some breeds are simply less fussy, less objectionable. Some cats are also more affectionate than others. In this case, being held is not only a non-issue, it's something they like. Essentially giving in, and happily so, with something that goes against those natural tendencies. Think about it from a human standpoint, what you're doing, whatever it is. It goes against how you're hardwired, but if you're in a loving environment, a trusting environment, and you have that natural, easygoing personality, then yeah, you could very much find yourself enjoying something that runs counter to most everything else. I guess in the human example, we could call it perhaps, say, a guilty pleasure. Some cats have a guilty pleasure of being held. For the remainder of this video, I'll speak on various reasons why a cat, perhaps your cat, would object to being held outside of those instincts. What are some of the other reasons? And being that we are Senior Cat Wellness, we'll begin with health. Being held by you, it could cause pain and discomfort. If your cat is unwell, has arthritis, has an injury, or is dealing with something that has yet to be diagnosed, being held can be a negative, being physically touched in that way. The transfer of your cat's body weight to your arms, it could be painful for your pet. Some cats will object, kicking and screaming, quite literally in some cases. Now let's revisit that word again, control. If your cat is generally uneasy, stressed, and uncomfortable, rather anxious, they could refuse to be held and instead choose isolation in order to handle themselves, in order to cope with whatever is bothering them. It's not uncommon for anxious felines to retreat rather than giving in to being physically embraced. Earlier on, I spoke of fear, how being held can be viewed as a threatening act. If your cat just doesn't want to be held, there could be fear in play. There could also be negative associations that are linked to the act of being held. Perhaps, and just using this as an example, a small child held a cat and it just didn't go so well. Perhaps the cat was dropped. Perhaps the kid was yelling. Those negative associations and those past traumas can be a major factor. Perhaps someone in the past, a person was, let's call it, really squeezy with the holding, just overboard with the affection. Cat felt trapped and somewhat smothered, perhaps. We could all probably name dozens of potential examples, but the best way to think of it, and I've used this example with other topics, and that's that cat carrier. The cat carrier and the vet. Why do some cats freak out over the carrier, just the sight of the carrier? Past associations. The cat associates that object with something negative, either being placed in the carrier itself or being placed in the carrier and then winding up in a strange place. It's all quite negative. A child in the dentist office. Is the child anxious because of the office? Or is it the association of what comes next? Some cats can take a negative tone when it comes to being held, simply based on times in the past where being held went horribly wrong. The cat has enough information from past experiences to know that being held is far from enjoyable. As an owner, it's never wise to force the issue. If you're holding a cat, your cat, and you know they don't like it, give control back to your feline. The more you force things, the more likely your cat will be to become combative. This could result in your cat going a bit wild and you coming away with a scratch or 2 or 10. That's a lose-lose situation for sure. If your cat begins to kick and squirm, displays flattened ear posture, or starts to swish that tail in a slow and deliberate manner, these are all signs that your cat is very much unhappy. Being able to read these signs from the onset, it will save your cat prolonged anxiety. It will save you from a negative event and outcome. If your cat just doesn't like to be held, and bad experiences have certainly proven to be true, then it's important to know your cat's personality and really tap into what they do enjoy. Make sure daily playtime is on the agenda. Make sure your cat has a place of their own to nap and relax, and also to play in an area when you are not around. Make sure they have proper bedding and proper toys. The objective here is to create a space where they can be free, feel relaxed, and also be entertained. If holding your cat is just not an option, replace that intent, your positive intent, with other things that will give your cat some peace and joy. By setting up a space for your pet, a comfortable space, and guarding their physical boundaries and respecting that line, the line to not cross, in the big picture, you'll establish a much, much better relationship with your cat. It's all about trust. If your cat trusts you and understands that you do have their best interest at heart, you'll develop a strong and loyal bond, even if the ability for you to physically hold your cat is just not a positive option. And to the audience of Senior Cat Wellness, what are your thoughts on this topic? Is there anything you'd like to add to the conversation, your personal stories, and your general thoughts? Anything and everything, that comment section, as always, it's all yours. And if you enjoyed this content, please give the video a like and subscribe to the channel. I'd love to have you as a member of the Senior Cat Wellness family. And until next time, thank you so very much for watching, and I will talk to you later.